I was here late last year, doing a different story, and it seemed that the President and the government at the time was very strong. It seemed unlikely that there would be a change in government. How did it happen that there has been a change in government?
Yes, there was a presidential election. The former president wanted to go for an election before the termination of his period. And at the election, his opponent was secretary of his party, who was a cabinet minister, who opted to challenge him for the post of presidency and sought nominations. And the United National Party, which was the major opposition party, decided to back him. Along with the United National Party, several other constituent parties of the former president also got together, and they went for election, defeated the president, and the candidate, Mr. Maithripala Sirisena, who sought to be the president, was elected with a majority of about 300,000 votes. And since then, there have been a lot of changes in the political and the administrative process of Sri Lanka. The present president, along with the leader of the United National Party, that is the leader of the opposition, along with the committee, got together and drafted a manifesto for a period of 100 days, which manifesto they were obliged to implement once he was elected to power as the president of Sri Lanka. And that process is now on. And in that process, one of the fundamental issues that the present president had to face was to reduce the cost of living. And he did so by reducing the cost of living of the more important items that a man had to face day to day, in that, like the cost of electricity, cost of fuel, then cost of gas, water supply bills, etc. They were all reduced as promised in order to cushion the cost of living, particularly for the low-income groups. Plus, certain taxes on essential foodstuffs were also removed on a budget that was presented within a short time after he assumed office. Then, in addition to that, another important promise that was given by the president was to cut the powers of the executive president and make the parliament more powerful by giving executive power to the Prime Minister and to the cabinet. And that process is now on. The amendment to the Constitution is under now discussion. I think the draft bill has been now tabled in Parliament. They are due to be debated on the 9th and 10th.
Will that be passed?
Yes.
Will it be passed within the 100 days?
Yes, yes. I mean, it will be presented on the 9th and the 10th, 2 days of debate. In the meanwhile, some people have gone to the Supreme Court in order to make certain amendments to that. So let's wait and see what the Supreme Court will say. After that, if there are amendments that are necessary, we will include that in the proposed new constitution with amendments. So that's in the offing, and according to that, after the present term of this president, the next president will be a nominal president with less powers, whilst the majority of the powers will be vested with the Prime Minister and the cabinet. At the same time, committees have been appointed to combat corruption, to investigate into corruption that took place during the past regime. Then there is another committee dealt for drugs, and they also several other committees have been set up to investigate into the corruption and various other problems that took place during the past regime.
Can I ask you about those things?
One important matter I forgot to mention in that budget that we have presented was the increase in salaries of the government servants. We have given a 10,000 rupee increase to all the government servants, which they were asking for the last several years and yes.
So there have been claims of corruption, there have been claims of serious abuses of power by the previous government, including violence, including white van abductions and torture and etc. Have these things finished? Have these things stopped?
Yeah. One of the pledge that he gave was that he will bring good governance to this country, in the sense that he will not allow the type of things that happened in the last regime, like the white man abductions, then the other corrupt practices that took place, influencing the police, so on, several other killings that took place, which were not investigated, are to be now investigated and found out who was behind. And about the corrupt deals, millions of rupees, billions of rupees, which have gone into the hands of the politician, are now under investigation. So much so, it has been discovered that nearly 2,000 to 3,000 billion dollars have been deposited in the foreign banks.
Sorry, can you just say that again?
3 to 5,000 billion dollars are said to have been deposited in foreign bank accounts by certain politicians of the past regime.
3 to 5,000 billion dollars.
Yes.
US dollars.
US dollars. And some of it, the names and the bank have been circulated through the internet. And now the World Bank unit that is investigating into these deposits are in action. They came to Sri Lanka. That information has been given. One such bank is the Dubai Bank of Dubai, DB Bank. So, like that, that is only one place. But there is information. There have been money deposited in Seychelles. There is, some is supposed to be in Ukraine, some in Bahrain. So these are some of the information that is being circulating regarding their illegally obtained funds.
And whose pockets have they gone into? Whose bank accounts?
There are a number of names that have been mentioned. I don't want to come out with the names now, but the investigators are now going into that, and they are all powerful politicians of the previous day.
Are we talking the highest levels here?
May not be the president, but around that.
On the question of the abuses of citizens' rights, there have been claims that the things like the white van abductions were also approved at the highest levels of government. What do you know about this?
Yeah. Now, that was a very common feature. Whoever, particularly the journalists, who did criticize the government, were subject to that type of punishment. Who have not really taken, not only women, several others. And even number of journalists that was under. Now investigations are on. Who was responsible for that? The number of politicians, members of parliament, more particularly the Tamil members of parliament who gunned down in the city of Colombo. Those investigations are also on. And they are searching for good evidence in order to take the culprits into custody.
Is there any evidence pointing to those in political power in the previous regime?
Yes, there are a number of cases in which investigations have started during that time and shelved due to political pressure. So now the authorities are now reopening those files and they are looking for fresh evidence. No sooner they get sufficient evidence, they will take them before a court of law and maybe necessarily remand them.
So I've been here for a couple of weeks. I've been around the country, and people, it seems to me, are both cautiously hopeful for the future, but also still nervous about whether the former regime continues to wield some sort of behind-the-scenes power.
You see, the problem there is those officials who served under the former regime are also the officials who are serving under this regime. So there is some doubt whether these officials are genuinely working according to the whims and wishes of the present government, or whether they are working underhand in order to prevent, for example, investigations and other processes that this government has originated. So there is that problem is there. But however, we are fighting hard in order to pressure these officials to give up their former commitments to the previous leaders and the government and to work with the present government.
So when we talk about officials, we're talking about military security
particularly the police people.
But
They are the people who are doing most of the investigation. They are the people who are doing. It's the Attorney General's Department on one side, the CID is on one side, and the regular police on the other side. So these investigations are mostly conducted by these officers, and there are other members of the committee who have been appointed, but the police people are the people who are competent in order to obtain statements and do the investigations.
So what these things raise is a question about who is holding the power. Are the civilian political leaders holding the power, or are the officials in these different security forces holding the power?
No, we have kept the security forces in their barracks. There is no necessity to call them out. Excepting in the north, there are some camps that are there for purpose of security in the event of any such uprising taking place. The rest of the country, it is the police who is looking after the security of the person and property of the people of this country. So that we have demilitarized the operations in Sri Lanka, in short. And people are quite now free to move around. There is media freedom, there is freedom of the individual, all that. And the court of law, we are trying to make it as independent as possible. There was complaints earlier that there was interference with the judiciary. And the police, we are trying to make it independent as much as possible. And even in the government service, our objective is to make an independent government service. And all those provisions are now included in the new constitution for the formation of independent commissions, including the election commission.
And the committee system would be also a process of oversight?
Very much of it. That is where the shifting of power from the presidential system to a parliamentary system, which is the Westminster system that we are strongly advocating.
Now, it seems like a significant divestment of
change.
powers.
Yes, significant change in the political atmosphere.
Yes, but there's also ongoing calls for the former president, Mahinda, to run for the prime ministership. Is it possible, though, then, that powers are divested from the president towards the parliament and the prime minister, and then Mahinda wins the prime minister, wins enough seats in the parliament and becomes prime minister, and actually continues more of the same?
No, it's like this. The present president will enjoy the presidential powers till his term is over. It is after that only the shifting of powers from the presidential to the prime minister that will take place.
But even in that circumstance, could not the former president, who many said was ruling like a dictator, that he might also be able to use the powers of the prime ministership in the next term?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes. If the constitution provides, he can. But my strong feeling is he can't make it. Can't make it for the simple reason people are quite aware of the corruption and about the other problems that people have to face in regard to their safety and security during their tenure of office.
So you're saying that he's a spent force?
Yeah, I am strongly feel. Even though he's trying to put up a show by bringing people and showing, but with all what he did even before the election was the same process, but he failed.
He still got a large number of votes.
He has a base.
Yes.
He has a foundation, but that foundation is insufficient to capture power to be a president or even a prime minister, or to have a majority in the house.
You think even now he will not be able to achieve majority?
He will not be able to secure a majority. Because we, in the present president and the government have got some of the very strong parties who were able to defeat the president in the last election. So as long as they are together, it is not possible for him to secure a premiership. Because he has only a few number of MPs who are now backing him. Majority of them have come up to the government side and now it has created a majority.
Now, it was a real surprise that Mahinda was defeated, and there's been speculation about how that occurred, that various senior political and civil society leaders joined together and planned his removal, planned his defeat.
Yes, it was a surprise to a certain extent, but all forces came together in order to defeat him. All forces came together, religious, social, voluntary organizations, because they all wanted a change, purely on these corrupt practices.
But how did that happen? Because it was, the atmosphere at the time was so, shall I say, repressive? I don't want to overstate it, but the atmosphere was very heavy at the time. How was it that people came together to join forces?
Ours is a democratic country. People have changed governments quite regularly. They exercise their vote very carefully. But they did not give out of what they had in mind because of the fierce psychosis that the government was exercising over the people on different issues. Silently they went and voted against the government, which was a surprise for the defeated president himself.
So that was a surprise. It seems that there was a bottom, an uprising from the bottom.
Yes.
But also there was some planning from the top as well. Together it happened, yeah?
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the planning from the top. Who organised the planning from the top?
It's our Prime Minister, who is the head of the Military National Party and former leader of the opposition. He did the ground organisation for the presidential election. And he used our machinery in order to gain victory for the present president.
And also the former president, Chandrika?
Yeah, she also did support, but the main man was the present Prime Minister. There were the Buddhist party leaders and
Sovita?
so they and the JHU, like that there are several parties that had support from the people who are responsible for this victory.
So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
It's fascinating for an outsider to come and learn about Sri Lanka in transition. It's fascinating.
See, the important thing is the press is completely free today.
Completely
Media.
free. Yeah.
Completely free of any interference from the government. That is the freedom of media. In fact, we are trying to now pass a bill in Parliament guaranteeing the freedom of the press.
I also noticed that there's a member of Parliament who is giving statements to the CID about the murder of the former editor of the Sunday Leader.
Yes, correct. Those investigations are on. One of these days, once the CID and the department finds sufficient evidence, we'll take those relevant people into custody. There were 2-3 Tamil MPs who were murdered. They have been now identifying who did the firing. In one case, a Navy man has been identified and admitted that he fired at whose instance is the matter that now we are investigating.
So let me ask a provocative question. Was the former president's brother responsible?
I couldn't tell you until these investigations are over. I have to be reasonable. The process is on. Give us a little more time. As soon as something comes out with adequate evidence, we'll take them into custody.
Well, certainly Gotabaya's got some travel restrictions now.
Yes, impounding of passports of several people have been taking place because these investigations are pending.
Yes.
So let's wait and see. Already there are one or two people from the cabinet ministers who are arrested and remarked. Much more to come, I think, according to the information. That's it.
Thank you for your time.
You have got the list of the 100-day program.
Yes.
You got that?
I've got it, yes.
So we are working according to that. About 60% of that has been completed now.
So I understand that that's the case, but people I speak to have also expressed the frustration that it's too slow.
They expect immediately for us to arrest all those people who are responsible for the fraud, malpractices, corruption, and the other criminal offences that have been committed. You can't do it like that. You have to take the process of. You have to have evidence, you have to have investigation. So that is being done. But people think that we must do it immediately. I think that's wrong. That's not the rule of law. That's completely, that's some sort of a dictatorial process that they are expecting. We can't resort to that. We have given that assurance that we will uphold the rule of law and democracy in this country.
So is 100 days too ambitious? Is it too short a time?
In a way it is too short, but nevertheless we are trying to achieve the maximum. And there is a very substantial progress. With the amendment to the new constitution and the formation of the new commissions, independent commissions, that is 50% of our achievement to ensure what took place in the last regime will not take place again.
So people are also saying that unless people who are guilty of the crimes that were committed, both in terms of the corruption but also in terms of the abuses, unless those people are dealt with before the election, they risk making the most of the possibility of the election campaign and getting back into power, holding on to their power.
No. Most of the people in this country laterally